There's this flying joke on the internet these days that anyone above age 25 is already too old, and younger Gen Zs are calling older Gen Zs uncles, and millennials at this point should just consider themselves dinosaurs and start collecting old age pensions. However, all these can be dismissed as harmless little jokes on the internet. It's not like they have any real life consequences. Wait, hold on, they do? So in this video, I want to talk about something more serious, how ageism can severely affect people's actual livelihoods in a certain part of the world. Like, you literally cannot get a job simply because you're in your 30s, which is considered too old. And just like all topics related to East Asia, it all comes down to this one meme, the Evangelion meme, featuring Shinji and his signature constipated, depressed face. Depressed because he doesn't want to pilot the Eva and save the world, but his dad keeps pushing him to. Staring at this little guy's tortured face, a big question always looms in my head. Why him? Like, why doesn't his dad just pilot the Eva himself? After all, he is a middle-aged man in his 40s with all the life experience to deal with this level of stress, while his son is just a 14-year-old. And to answer that, I know some Eva fans will say, oh, it's because something about Shinji's identity makes him more compatible with the Eva. But come on, we all know what the real reason is. The market/the audience only wants young protagonists. They don't want to see a middle-aged person still experimenting, still trying, because at that age, you're supposed to have everything figured out and just fade out to the background. Even in the genre of isekai, where middle-aged salarymen fed up with the real world get transported to another fantasy world, they often have to take the form of a younger body. Now, to be fair, this tendency to only make young people the main characters isn't something unique to East Asia. If you look at most adventure or superhero type shows around the world, the protagonist is usually someone young. However, here in East Asia, things are taken to another level, to the point that you don't even see a 20-year-old protagonist. It's all just a bunch of underaged teenagers going on these crazy quests, like the 14-year-old Tokyo Revengers squad already running criminal networks while being middle schoolers, the 15-year-old Yuji Itadori being exposed to these absurdly intense situations, and 17-year-old Light Yagami essentially taking on the task of becoming God. And this whole phenomenon of once you hit your 30s, you become irrelevant is actually very counterintuitive and goes against our cultural roots. Because according to Confucian values, as you get older, you're supposed to gain respect and gain status, not lose it. That's the promise. So somehow, somewhere down the line, things have taken a U-turn and society is still in shock to find out why. Part 1. The 35-year-old career curse. In the past few years, a very weird trend has emerged in Chinese society, which is that once you hit 35 years old, the job market seems to stop wanting you, especially in fast-paced sectors like tech, media, and many other white-collar industries. Scrolling through Chinese internet platforms, you'll see tons of posts and videos crying about not being able to find a job at that age, which should come as no surprise because if you look at the top 10 tech and internet companies in China, the median age is below 34 years old. Therefore, the phenomenon is cutely nicknamed the 35-year-old crisis. Another cutesy term these companies use is that instead of saying they're laying off people, they use the word optimized. So you're being optimized means you're fired, which is a lot like the kind of stuff you see in a dystopian sci-fi movie where real human beings are treated like defective hardware getting dumped into trash bins after losing value. And this 35-year-old crisis is not like your stereotypical American midlife crisis where someone buys a flashy new car to feel young again and questions their life choices. China's version is much darker. And what's so dark about it is that these people who find themselves suddenly unemployed did nothing wrong. Most of them are highly educated. Some even hold PhD degrees, and they have years of experience in the set industry. Meet Mrs. Z, a 36-year-old ex-employee at a prestigious internet company who got laid off last year and has since been unable to find a job. She said she was fired on a normal Friday afternoon. The HR person told her that the company highly valued her skills and her contribution, but had to let her go to reduce labor cost, and her age became a deciding factor. At 35 years old, she was believed to have declining energy level and stamina, which made her less competitive. Now, some of you may say, that's absurd. How is 35 years old even considered old? Isn't that supposed to be your prime age? Both your mentals and physics are at its peak. Plus, with years of experience in the set industry, shouldn't companies be chasing after these talents instead of firing them? Well, to answer that, we need to take a quick look at China's job market landscape. The country has an oversupply of educated workers. Every year, millions of fresh university graduates enter the workforce competing for a limited number of white-collar jobs. And from an employer's perspective, why hire a 35-year-old with higher salary expectations and potential family responsibilities when you can hire a 20-something-year-old willing to work brutal hours for half the price? Especially in industries like tech, being young is directly associated with productivity. Because remember, you're expected to work 996 in these companies. So realistically, it's just easier to pressure younger workers into these slave-like lifestyles. Once employees reach their 30s, many start wanting things like a family or better work-life balance to spend time with families, stability, and higher pay. So from the company's perspective, that makes them less exploitable and thus less competitive. And once you lose your job in your 30s, what next? Well, three options. You either become a food delivery driver or a Didi driver, which is the Chinese equivalent of Uber, or delivery express parcels. Some have jokingly named this the triathlon of middle-aged job seekers. Another hilarious term netizens have come up with to describe the limited career options for middle-aged people is the lucky three jobs, which is to become a security guard, a nanny, or a cleaner. Now, all self-deprecating jokes aside, imagine that after you spend your whole life grinding at schools and work, you'll find yourself suddenly having no place in society and you have to resort to gigs like delivering bubble tea to survive. And it's precisely due to this age crisis that many people turn towards stable careers that supposedly don't depend on youth. Jobs like working for the government, aka becoming a civil servant, which in a weird sense only serves to exacerbate the dire situation. Because so many people want these stable government jobs now, the government created extremely difficult and hyper-competitive civil service exams to filter applicants. Millions of people take these exams every year, with some studying full-time for a few years just for a tiny chance at landing one of these jobs. And here comes the crazy part. Partially due to this crazy demand, these civil exams themselves have placed an age limitation. And guess what that age is? 35 years old. Anyone above 35 years old shall not apply. So ironically, it all comes in a loop. Now, what about China's neighbors Japan and South Korea? We've all heard that they like hierarchies in the office where promotions are based primarily on age and seniority. The longer you stay at a company, the more authority you accumulate. So on the surface, this almost seems like the complete opposite of China's brutal middle-age cutoff culture. And to some extent, that is true. The Japanese and Korean corporate culture values loyalty almost above everything else. So the ideal worker is someone who joined the company fresh out of college and just stay there until retirement. So yes, in these systems, middle-aged workers normally won't be discarded the way Chinese workers do. And you could even argue that age becomes a form of leverage in a certain aspect. But the problem is that this leverage will only work in your favor if you stay with the same company and succumb to being their slave. What if you want to change jobs or explore a different field? Or you simply couldn't stand the work culture of your current office and want to apply somewhere else? In those situations, age is no longer considered an advantage but a major liability. In Japan, for example, job hopping is disproportionately concentrated among younger workers, while older workers, especially those over 35 or 40, historically changed jobs far less often due to unspoken age-related hiring barriers. A 2024 economics paper analyzing Japanese job ads discovered that firms often prefer younger workers in mid-career hiring. In addition, explicit and implied age limits in recruitment were still legal and common. And over to the Korean Peninsula, a report by Human Rights Watch found that South Korea's employment system systematically discriminates against older workers through things like mandatory retirement policies and wage reduction systems. One particularly dystopian mechanism is something called the peak wage system, where older workers approaching retirement age gradually have their salaries reduced simply because they're getting older, even if they're performing the exact same work. And it certainly doesn't help when the entire tone and atmosphere of these countries is that aging is a sin. The whole East Asian aesthetic is centered around looking young, and reducing wrinkles is not enough. You want to look almost childish, with features of a naive schoolgirl. You want to be like 50 years old but look 18. And if you go on any type of media, whether it's traditional media or social media, the message is that aging is to be shamed. Ever opened a K-drama or C-drama recently? Ever noticed that something weird is going on with everyone's skin? Nobody has wrinkles anymore. They all have 100% smooth skin where not a single trace of wrinkles can be found. Like, this actress is 55 years old in this show, but her skin is as smooth as wax because they're all using these anti-aging filters that smooth out your skin to smithereens. And look, if dramas don't even allow wrinkles to appear on people's faces in an imaginary world, perhaps it's not so strange that in reality, society associates aging with irrelevance. And that's it for this video. Thanks for watching.